Hey, what's shaking, BookTube? I'm here today with another discussion video, and we're taking it to the front lines today. I'm doing another bit of a divide in the community. Today we will be discussing the people that don't write in books, or dog-ear the pages, and the heathens that do. Okay, so the central topic of this video will be, should you be defacing or annotating books? But the discussion itself is going to kind of take its form around, it'll take the form of a response to a certain article I read. And I found this article by watching a video from Novel Thoughts where she mentioned another video on the topic of writing in books. So I went and watched that one. I believe that was called something like Writing in Books ? By ChapterSelect. And he was referencing an article through his whole video. And he had a very positive opinion on the article. Basically every time he read something, he would agree with it and basically take the stance that he was being educated on stuff that this article was providing for him. Which is fine, which is absolutely fine, and I'm sure a lot of people would see it that way as well if they read the article. But as he was reading extracts, I couldn't help but disagree and start formulating responses in my own mind. So I thought I would do a video where I will basically read parts of the article and issue my response. And you'll find as the video goes on that this will basically show you my opinion on the whole writing in books stance and on this article itself, which is pretty important. Obviously everything I mentioned will be linked below, including that article. Okay, so it's called How to Mark a Book and it's by Mortimer J. Adler, but the heavy portion of the article, the heavy majority of it, is actually about his views on people that don't write in books. So that's what we're going to be touching on first. Okay, so the article starts off very well. I'll read you out verbatim. He says a fair bit, but to summarize, he does say in one line, "You shouldn't mark a book which isn't yours. Librarians or your friends who lend you books expect you to keep them clean, and you should." And that's obviously absolutely true. I don't think there's anyone who writes in books that don't belong to them that doesn't know that they're being a jackass. Straight after that though, he goes on to say, and I'll read another part from the article, something that confused me, and considering this was straight out of the gates, it just threw me off a bit when I was watching ChapterSelect's video. So I'll read the part. It says, "Full ownership comes only when you have made it a part of yourself," referring to the books, "and the best way to make yourself a part of it is by writing in it. An illustration may make the point clear. You buy a beefsteak and transfer it from the butcher's icebox to your own, but you do not own the beefsteak in the most important sense until you consume it and get it into your bloodstream. I'm arguing that books too must be absorbed into your bloodstream to do you any good." Here's where I stand on that though. I don't agree in any sense that you need to write in a book to make it your own. I mean, if we're being literal about it, you own the book as soon as you purchase it or have it given to you. But I know that's not what he was getting at. What he means is that you haven't fully consumed the book until you write in it, and you basically eliminate any option of it not being personalized to you. And I completely disagree. If I buy a book, the point where that book becomes mine or I feel personal to it is when I'm personally attached to the story. So if I read the story and it's a good story and I'm personally attached, that book is my own. That's how I feel. I don't think writing in the book makes any difference. That's a pretty material thing to do in a physical sense. And if we're to use this analogy as well, that you buy beefsteak, it's not yours until you eat it, I would say that consuming a book, again, isn't when you write in it, it's when you read the story. So that analogy fits, but not in the way he intended. Straight after that, there's a bit he says where it goes, there are 3 kinds of book owners. The first has all standard sets and bestsellers, unread, untouched. This deluded individual owns wood pulp and ink, not books. The second has great many books, a few of them read through, most of them dipped into, most of them as clean and shiny as the day they were bought. This person probably likes to make books his own, but is restrained by a false respect for physical appearance. Get to that in a minute. The third has a few books, or many, every one of them dog-eared and dilapidated, shaken and loosened by continual use, marked and scribbled in from front to back. That is, to me, a really condescending, self-righteous, and contradictory statement. He's basically saying that we can categorize all readers into 3 groups in a way that a judgment could be made on how avid that reader is by simply looking at their book collection, and that's not possible in any way. The thing is, to say that you're restrained by a false respect for the physical appearance of the book, that's basically saying that if you keep your book immaculate and you don't write in it, if that's something you're not comfortable with doing, which is fine, then you haven't truly read the book and you shouldn't be seen as a true reader. And that, of course, is ridiculous. Of course, there's people that buy a lot of books just to have them look pretty, but that's a generalization that cannot be made about anyone who doesn't write in their books. And to be honest, that has nothing to do with whether you should be writing in the books or not. That's just a judgment call. It's just irrelevant information, and it just hurts the article, in my opinion. This guy, Mortimer, he's very well educated by the sound of it. He's just a little bit deluded as well, if I may say so. And the fact he finished that quote with, in parentheses, "this man owns books," that is the part I see as the most condescending. They aren't logical categories. Writing in books has nothing to do with how many books you own or how pristine you keep their condition. Of course, if you see someone with, 100 books that are all worn out, you're going to assume they're an avid reader, but you don't know that. They could have just picked them up from a secondhand book fair, and even if you know that they're an avid reader, the fact that they're worn out does nothing to contribute to how avid of a reader that they are. That it just doesn't... it's irrelevant information. My most important point on that paragraph, though, is that this completely contradicts the last point he had, which was that if you aren't writing in books, you're not doing it out of a false respect for the physical appearance of the books. That contradicts itself in the next paragraph, because he's saying that if your books don't fit a physical appearance, then you can't be an avid reader, and that's a generalization, of course, and again, that's going towards making an assumption based on physical appearance, which he was just razzing people for in the last point. There's 2 bits in the next part as well. So he says, if your respect for magnificent binding or typography gets in the way, buy yourself a cheap edition and pay your respects to the author. Again, that's a silly thing to say, just to insinuate that if you aren't writing in the book, you're not paying your respects to the author is ridiculous, because, first of all, if you are someone who doesn't want to write in the books because you want to keep them pristine, you could very well do the writing in a journal. So again, that's a different way of annotating if that's something you like to do, which a lot of people do. But to be completely honest, I don't see how that's in any way paying respects to the author. Maybe you are enjoying their work more than you possibly could be if you were to, write in the book. Possibly, not guaranteed, differs reader to reader. But buying 2 editions of a book just so you can write in it, in the book itself, and exclusively not use a separate piece of paper, it's silly. It's really silly. What I was getting, the vibe I was getting when I hit this part of the article, is that this person is more infatuated with the physical appearance of a book rather than the story than the people that he's talking about, who he thinks are more infatuated with the physical appearance of the book rather than the story. I feel it's done a bit of a contradictory spin on itself. He goes on to say, the marked book is usually the thought-through book. Finally, writing helps you remember the thoughts you had or the thoughts the author expressed. Again, if that's a process you would like to do to remember parts of the book, me personally, I don't bother too much with that. If you've seen my Should You Be Reading Critically video, you'll know that I encourage strongly to read critically and be critical of the author's work and take everything you can from the writing, no matter how relaxed the story is. I encourage reading it avidly, and if that takes the form of writing as you go, then fine, but it's not something necessary to appreciate the author's work or to remember parts of the story. Some people just have good memories, or maybe you don't see it as necessary to remember every specific detail or theme of a story. If you're an avid reader, you're going to be reading thousands, maybe tens of thousands of books the rest of your life. It's not necessary to remember everything. So the last point he makes in that primary bulk of this article is he says, but you may ask, why is writing necessary? Well, the physical act of writing with your own hand brings words and sentences more sharply before your mind and preserves them better in your memory. That's true. That's very true. It's a fact that if you write something, rather than just trying to memorize it, you will remember it more vividly. But as I just said, it differs as to whether you would see that as necessary or not. If that's something you like to do, then that's fine. But my problem with everything up until this point has just been that this hasn't been an article telling you why you should be writing in books. It's an article telling you what kind of person you are if you don't. It's just super condescending, and I find it a bit self-righteous. It's someone saying to you that, basically calling you a hipster. It's someone saying that if you don't write in books, the only reason you're not doing that is because you are too worried about the physical appearance of the book. It's silly. Some people just aren't comfortable doing that. Some people have books as collector's items, no matter what edition they are. Like myself, I like to keep my books in good condition. If I need to write something to enjoy the story more, I will do that on a separate piece of paper. That's fine. If people do like writing in books, that's also fine. Because going back to his very first point about what means you own the book, as soon as you buy the book, it's yours. You can do whatever the fuck you want to with it. Write in it, don't write it, who cares? Just don't throw condescending insults out at people who don't do what you do. The rest of the article is, well, the small part that's left in the article is actually what the title was suggesting this article is, which is how to write in books. And that part's all fine. That's very well done and very well educated behind that. It tells you, how you can do it, good ways of doing it, and strategies, that kind of stuff, which is fine. That's how to write in a book, which was what the article was called. And then right at the very end, he does say as well, most of us have been taken in by the notion that speed of reading is a measure of our intelligence. There is no such thing as the right speed of intelligent reading. And I completely agree, 100%. There's a lot of people that think if you are a much faster reader, then you are much more intelligent, or you're able to consume the story a lot better than other people. And that's just flat out incorrect. It can be proven incorrect by if you get 10 people who read books, put them in the same room together, I'm sure you can find a combination of 2 people where that would be proven to be incorrect. But yeah, that's basically it. Again, I have no hard feelings whatsoever against the person who wrote the article. I'm really sorry if it seems like I did. And I have no hard feelings against people who do write in their books and that kind of stuff. Again, I feel you should be able to do whatever you want. But if I was to summarize this, I just feel that this article was less about arguing for writing in books and more about dragging down the people who don't do it. But that's why I do discussion videos. Maybe I'm completely wrong. Maybe I've just interpreted it the wrong way. Let me know what you think in the comments below on that article. You can find it down in a link down below as well if you want to give it a read yourself for full context. And if I was to summarize my opinion on writing in books, again, I don't hate it or anything like that. I'm not comfortable doing it for some reason. It's just not, I don't know. I pick up a pen to write in a book and I just can't do it. Except for that roll the intro gag at the start, but that's an old damaged book I was throwing out anyway. But there is a certain charm to picking up a book that has been, fully worn out and has writing in the margins, that kind of stuff. It does add a certain amount of character to the book and I can appreciate that. But that's not a good enough reason for me to do it. You know what I mean? I understand a lot of people do it to consume the story better, and I get that. I completely get that. Anyway, yeah, that's it, guys. I hope you enjoyed this discussion video. If you did, show me some love, give me a thumbs up. Check out some of my other videos. Make sure you let me know what you think on this topic. And yeah, if you haven't already, join the Wolfpack and subscribe. And if you are in the Wolfpack, I'll see you in the next video. Catch ya.